My name is Henrik Hansen, and I'm a practicing dentist in Northern California. And we have a 32-foot Flagstaff fifth wheel with an absorption fridge, a standard fridge that everybody has. And we've been having the same problems that everybody has. And we finally decided enough is enough. We're going to get rid of it and put in a standard 110 volt residential fridge. So in looking around, Lowe's was having a really great deal on a Hotpoint 9.7 cubic foot fridge, and I decided, wow, that's really great. So I went ahead and bought it. And I've been doing a lot of looking on YouTube, and there's been some great videos on installing the fridge, which we have not done yet. But one of the things that was bothering me was that I didn't find a really good solution to how to secure the refrigerator and the freezer door when you're traveling down the road to make sure that they don't fly open. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and I came up with what I think is a pretty good solution, and so that's why I'm doing this video. So first I wanted to point out that on the top of it, and this was from a video that I saw on YouTube, and I'll try to put the link down below. It's really well done. It's a brilliant video on how to take 2.5-inch aluminum, 1/8-inch thick piece of metal and secure it to the screw holes on the top for the hinge, and then the screw holes on the other side where you can put the hinge if you want to reverse the doors. There's already 6 screw holes, 3 per side, and this video shows you in great detail how to drill the holes on the aluminum angle iron and get it lined up exactly so that it will mount. And so that's what I did, and I used his technique. Really well done. The only difference that I did was that I'm going to leave the access opening on the back of the RV open so that I get some airflow in there, and I don't want bugs to be able to get around the side of the refrigerator and come into the RV. And because this aluminum bar or angle iron sits on top of the hinge on one side and is spaced with washers on the other side, there is a gap along here, and I don't want to allow bugs to get in to the RV through that gap. So the only thing I did differently was I sealed up the back with just caulking, just your normal kitchen type of caulking or bathroom, and sealed up the back part between this angled piece of aluminum and the top of the fridge. So that's the only difference that I did. But what I really wanted to go into in detail, and I'll go ahead and get a close-up so I can show you exactly what I came up with. Okay, so here we are at the bracket, and I kind of plagiarized this from another video, and it was an interesting video. What he did was, first of all, I'll talk about the pin. He took, this is a 1/4-inch pin, and by 3 inches long. You get these on Amazon. It has the little retention ball right there, and they come in a 2-pack. They're very inexpensive, and so that way you have a spare pin, but it slides in very easily. And if I can close the door, there we go. This slides in like this, and it totally secures the door. I'm trying to open the freezer, it's not budging, and the refrigerator, a little bit of movement, but doesn't open at all. Completely secures it. Easy to put in, easy to remove, no big deal. So that was his idea, and it was absolutely brilliant. And what he did was, these black vinyl pieces, they are simply screw covers, vinyl screw covers. They come in different sizes. Again, they're on Amazon. And all he did was take a box knife and cut off the rounded end, making them hollow all the way through, and just slip 2 of them on this. And what that does, of course, is that it spaces the whole thing so the pin sits up high enough that it locks the freezer as well as the refrigerator. Really brilliant idea. But what he did was he found a screen door hinge bracket that he could use in place of this custom bracket that I made. And that's what I'm talking about, is this custom bracket. But anyway, these two holes right here are the threaded holes in the refrigerator to put the center hinge if you want to reverse the door to open in the other direction. The center hinge comes over here, and of course on the top and the bottom, those hinges move over to this side also, and then you have opening in the other direction. That's why these two holes are here. But his bracket that he bought didn't fit these holes, so what he was going to do is drill a couple of little holes into the front of the refrigerator, use self-tapping metal screws to screw the bracket in, and then he would have the bracket for his pin out here. Problem is, and he found out the hard way, is that there is a high pressure gas line right under the surface that runs around the front of the boxes, and that gas line is to carry warm gas to gently warm the front of the refrigerator to prevent condensation, and so you don't get dripping water on your floor. It's a brilliant engineering idea. Problem is, when he drilled the hole, he breached or penetrated one of those gas lines and heard a loud hissing, and the gas that cools the refrigerator hissed out. And at that point, the refrigerator is toast. You can't use it anymore, you can't fix it. So that was a very expensive mistake. So what he did was, on the one where he breached, he tore open the front, saw where the gas lines were, so that on his new replacement refrigerator, he could drill the holes not where the gas lines were, because he knew where they were because he'd opened up the old refrigerator. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to drill holes into the refrigerator and take that chance. I'm going to utilize the two existing holes for the bracket, because I know I can't breach anything with them. They're made for bolts. And these are M5s, by the way, 1 inch long with lock washers. So I needed to make this bracket. So what I did first was I measured from the top of the gasket on the inside of the refrigerator door to the top of the gasket on the freezer door, and saw what that distance was between the top of this gasket, bottom of this one, and it turns out it was 1.25 inches. So if that's 1.25 inches of space where the gaskets are not touching, that I decided to make this bracket right here 1 1/8 inches, giving myself a little bit of slop so that I wouldn't interfere with the two gaskets. So this is 1 1/8 inches wide. Then I measured from where I wanted the bracket to go to where I wanted my tang to be, which was over in this area, because I wanted it to close right here on the fat part of the door, not where the handle is, about in the center. So I measured how wide this was going to be, and it'll be different for different refrigerators, but you know, you can get the width you need and the length you need. And then I made the tang longer than I needed. I brought it out probably a good 1/2 inch longer than I knew I would need. And then it came time to cut and mold this piece, and that'll be next. Okay, so here we are at the workbench, and what I did was I took that yellow piece of paper on the inside of the refrigerator that shows what the energy consumption is, and I figured that was a nice thickness. So I went ahead and took that, traced out what I knew the bracket was going to be. This part right here, that section, that's the part that's going to go against the refrigerator, and this long part here is going to get folded and is going to come out and be my tang. So this was the exact size that I wanted. So Amazon sells an 1/8 inch thick aluminum plate that is 8 inches by 8 inches. And that's what I wanted, was 1/8 inch thick aluminum plate. So I traced it out on the aluminum plate and then I took an awl and scribed it on the aluminum so I'd have a nice line to follow. Now you notice these are 1/2 inch holes here at the corners. The reason why is it's very difficult with a jigsaw and a metal blade to turn the corner, and it doesn't give you a very clean cut. So if you drill a 1/2 inch hole on each one of the two corners, then you can make your cut, you can turn your blade, stick it back in the hole, and make the other cuts, and it makes it infinitely easier to do it. So that's just a little trick to make a nice clean cutout. Anyway, so I cut it out of this 1/8 inch aluminum plate, and then once I cut it out, then I went ahead and measured where the two bolt holes would be, like there and there, to match up with the screw holes on the refrigerator. Went ahead and drilled them the proper size, and then verified on the refrigerator that my metal plate would screw in. And I was off by a little bit, so what you can do is take a round file, aluminum soft, so take a round file and just file a little bit and move your hole in whatever direction you need so that the two bolts go in cleanly into the two sockets on the refrigerator and bolt. And so this then would screw onto the refrigerator like that. Now it just became a matter of bending this piece at 90 degrees, and that's going to be next. Okay, so if you look very carefully, I'll try to angle this there, that's best. You can see that I made a cut up alongside here. That's to allow the tang to fold out. That's why that cut there, now it's pretty obvious where the cut is. So what I did was I figured that because you're not folding a piece of paper, you're folding 1/8 inch thick aluminum, you're going to need the fold to be a little bit closer to the edge here than dead center. So this is 1 1/8 inch, but what I did was I measured up 1/2 inch from this edge to where I wanted the cut to stop. I figured if the fold was at 1/2 inch on this side, it would be at about 1/2 inch on this side because of the 1/8 inch thick metal. So you got to make that cut up here to within 1/2 inch of the edge if you have these same dimensions. So then once I made that cut to allow this fold to happen, then I took an awl and I scribed exactly where this fold should be all the way across the middle. Then you take and you put it in your vise so that it's the edge of the vise is right on that scribe line, like that. Then now this tang is sticking straight up at this point, so you can start to fold it by hand, but then once you start getting it folded, then you can take a wooden block like this and start tapping on the block to make sure that you have as tight a fold back here as you possibly can, and that you're not folding the tang in the middle of the tang. You don't want it warped, you want it straight. So you can use a block and tap it down. Then verify with an angle that you have 90 degrees exactly between this and this. You can adjust this a little bit once it's mounted on the refrigerator. You can take your hand and you can bend it up and down just a hair to micro adjust this so that this splits the two doors, goes right between them. But get it pretty close with an angle iron, and tapping it this way with a block is going to give you a nice clean fold. Okay, so we're back at the refrigerator and I've remounted it again. And I'm going to shut the two doors. Okay, so what I did was I went ahead and pushed the freezer door in just a little bit, measured out from the bottom of the door here onto the tang 1/8 inch, because the hole you're going to drill is 1/4 inch, and so half of that's 1/8. So measure out 1/8, mark it, and then punch it so that you have a little dimple there, and then go ahead and drill the 1/4 inch hole for the pin. But I found that when I did that, the 1/4 inch hole was just a little bit too tight. It was a little hard to put the pin in and remove it. So I actually re-drilled the hole to 9/32, and the pin goes in really easily that way. But the little ball bearing at the bottom of the pin keeps it from ever coming out. Plus it's 3 inches long. It's not going to bounce out anyway. But drill it to 9/32. It's just easier that way. A 1/4 inch is too tight. Anyway, the tang, of course, is sticking out at least a good 1/2 inch beyond what you want. So go ahead and measure where you want to cut the tang so that you have a little bit of metal past your hole, and then cut that off. Take it off the refrigerator, cut that off. And then on a bench grinder, you can round the front of the tang and make it nice and round. Then you can use a file and then sandpaper to clean everything up, get rid of any sharp edges, make sure that everything is nice and smooth all the way around. Nothing's going to catch anybody or cause any damage. And then once it's all cleaned up, then clean it with acetone, and then you can go ahead and spray paint it with some Rust-Oleum, and that's it. You're done, and you've made a custom bracket utilizing the existing holes that is very strong, very sturdy, and is going to lock those doors, and they're not going to move as you're driving down the road. So I hope this has helped you and makes life a little bit easier. It's a little bit of work to do, but it's a fun project. It doesn't require a huge amount of skill. Just do some accurate measuring, and you'll be there. Thank you for watching.